Good morning, everybody. How is your Monday going? Let's check my audio and make sure everyone can hear me. I didn't check it this morning. It's hit and miss. I see some of you like that song. I saw Dina said she was getting ready to slap her knee. She was dancing already. Jay Woody, good morning. Just me said don't ask. Okay, Avi said you sound great. Good to go. Here we go. First off, most important, before we get to it, I saw in chat. Well, for one, Morgan's back. Morgan, where have you been? I was about to send the U.S. Marshals to look for you. Good morning, Lauren. Hello, Dolores. What's up? What's up? So before we get to all of this insanity, very, very important. Today is Elaine's birthday. Let's take a second and tell our friend Elaine happy birthday. Happy birthday, Elaine. I hope it's an incredible, incredible day, even though your birthday landed on a Monday. That always sucks when your birthday lands on a Monday. All right, you know how it feels the day after Christmas or a couple of days after Christmas, and you're like, well, back to the grind, back to life as normal. That's honestly how it feels with this trial over. It's like, okay, back to regular business because that was insane. And I only covered it from when Dum Dum took the stand to the verdict. And we had a lot of great chats and we had a lot of fun together. It was a lot of fun watching it with you guys. But now we're back to regular life because that was insane. That was insane. Let's do a poll. Do you believe justice was served? Or do you think that it might have been too swift of a verdict? I know some people were like, well, they didn't deliberate for very long. I'm like, because they knew. I have to give some credit to the United States of America and our jury system. I know I rag on juries quite a bit because I'm like, got some real dumbasses out there. But for all intents and purposes, while we're watching the trial, it's on in the background. We're working, warming up our lunch, getting another cup of coffee, going to the bathroom, answering some texts. They were intently focused, paying attention for 6 weeks. And they were ready to rock and roll. What does scare me, back to the jury system, because we have to eat our own in this country, if you know what I mean. We decide. We're like, you or cannot be in society with us. Nah. Not leaving this up to some damn lawyer up on the stand. We're going to decide. That's how it goes. But there were 3 people that had to be convinced. Obviously, the convincing didn't take too long because from what I'm understanding, there were more jurors on the Today Show this morning. It was like a 45-minute process. DoorDash is faster than this verdict. But there were 3 that were on the fence. 2 said innocent. 1 was like, yeah, I don't know. But they intently listened. It is a huge deal for South Carolina. Huge, particularly that county, because this family's reign of terror has stopped. But it's also a really big deal for, our country as a whole, because it doesn't matter your money, your social status, your political influences, who you rub shoulders with, or elbows is how they say it. You can be brought down. I kind of thought that was loud and clear when Michael Skakel went to jail, and a few others. But this was something else. So before I get to the comments, let me ask, for you, who do you think was the most compelling witness that the prosecution had? I originally answered this question and I said Maggie's sister. Then I was like, dang, what was I thinking? To me, it was Mark Tinsley. He left no questions for me. He put together that motive perfectly. When he explained the motion to compel and how he was digging for more money, he didn't believe he was broke. They were trying to intimidate him. They were harassing him. They said, you've crossed a line. You should only be suing his insurance. You just take what the insurance pays out, but you're going after him personally. And he was like, yes. Now, I think about this. There's really nothing to think about because it's all done and over. Alex isn't going anywhere. Sure, he'll appeal. He'll appeal, but he'll never see the light of day. And that's how it should be. Had his scheme worked, and people would think that this was some sort of vigilante justice for the boat accident, how horrible would that be? Because the boat accident then would just be forgotten. It'd be like, suck it up, kids. And he would be this sympathetic hero, almost like a murder. Here, Tinsley sues him personally, wouldn't take the insurance money and just make this go away. Now his wife and son are murdered. Yeah. Now what's going to happen to Buster? A lot of people are saying that he has something to do with Stephen Smith. Obviously, the financial crimes are still hanging out there. We heard more about those than the murder. And the judge, who I just absolutely adore, is going to be overseeing every bit of this. As if he wasn't already sick of Alex's face, he's still in it for the long haul. Over the weekend, he's on the screen right now. He was spotted at an SEC tournament game to support South Carolina women's basketball. They said he received a warm welcome. Lots of people were taking selfies with him. All kinds of stuff. I think he got a few marriage proposals. He was super, super busy. Super busy. He deserves that fanfare, in my opinion. Now, let me ask you this before we get to it. Should Firecrotch have taken the stand? I was really surprised. I wasn't going to stream this at all. But I was like, if he takes the stand, I'll stream it. Lo and behold, the narcissist did. I thought, and I'm not an attorney. I don't even pretend to be one. I'm not even a Google attorney. But I thought that Defense 101 was that your client doesn't say a damn thing, let alone talk to a jury. So do you think Firecrotch shot himself in the foot, no pun intended, when he took the stand? According to the jurors that have been interviewed, they all say, yeah, he was crying on command, crying on cues. One guy talked about that snot string he had that went from his knee to his nose. They were like, could have done without all that shit. But then here comes his attorneys saying, oh no, that definitely didn't hurt anything. And I'm like, did you tune in to Fox, CNN, MSNBC, The Today Show, CBS This Morning, ABC, Good Morning America? Did you tune in to any of them? Because the jurors have said him taking the stand sealed the deal. Besides the video, of course. Man, I can't believe they let him do that. For a while there, I thought it might work. I really did. Because I was like, he knows how to talk to juries. This trial is way unusual. Because everybody from the defense to the prosecutor to the defendant, the judge, I mean, everybody but the jury and the bailiff. I mean, the witnesses are all seasoned attorneys. They all know. They all know their way around a courtroom. They're not paper pushing attorneys. They're not check the fax machine attorneys. They know how to do it in a courtroom. Speaking of knowing how to do it, look at Rexy go, go, go. She just gifted 5 memberships. Grab it while you can. Thank you, Rexy. We had a lot of fun yesterday in the members live. Rexy was a winner. Rexy, did you get second or first place? I think Beck got first. Big winner. Yep, Rexy. Then we had the tiebreaker. It was awesome. All right, let's get to the comments, and then we're going to go through the aftermath of what we are dealing with now, because it's not going away anytime soon. This weekend, on any news station, any given minute of the day, it was either about Chris Rock or Alex Murdaugh all weekend. All right, C-Star, this is where I got the reign of terror phrase. She said, I agree with him 100%. She's talking about Mark Tinsley and the video that I put up Saturday night. She said, Alex's reign of terror is over. It's heartbreaking what damage he has done. And this is 100% true. I agree 100% with C-Star. Let's talk about the reign of terror, though. It's not just Alex. It's not just Alex. His daddy wasn't too nice either. His granddaddy, his great-granddaddy. I understand his mama was something, a force to be reckoned with. Not to disparage the dead, but Paul wasn't known to be a really nice guy. Maggie, some say she killed Gloria Satterfield. That she kind of hung out at the top of her ivory tower and looked down at the peasants around the town. That's another very strange element to this case, because Maggie and Paul aren't real sympathetic characters. It didn't take too long for people to come out and start talking about, well, the boat wreck and what Paul did and how horrible he was. You know, every town, especially small towns, has that family. You know what I mean? You have that family. They're just the ones that they run the town. Well, this family, it's done. Sadly, I'm telling you, and I'm not taking up for him. I'm not taking up for Firecrotch. He's probably the nicest one out of all of them. He probably is. What we know of is the murders of Maggie and Paul. We know about the slip and fall of Gloria's, where Maggie was like, get this housekeeper off my steps. We know about Stephen Smith. What do we not know? I have a feeling there's a lot more. That's just me, though. Gina Schaefer said, since he is openly admitting to the financial crimes, what's going to happen to all those 99 charges that he's yet to go to trial on? Is he going to admit to all those and not go to trial in the future? Well, I wondered about that too. It's like, dude, you're confessing all this in open court. How is that going to work? You've confessed it. Why are you going to have a trial? Maybe somebody can explain that to me, but the judge is going to be overseeing all of that. I'm like, he's not hiding this. The judge even kind of made a joke about, we've worn out our welcome here. Where are we going to go to do these other 99? Rowena said, living all my life in the South, I'm so proud that this message is sent to the good old boy justice system. Not today, she said. Nobody is above the law. Excellent day for truth and justice. That was over the verdict. And I agree. When you've had the run of stuff for so long and did not do good for your community, you didn't do good for your community. You're not that family that has built up a wonderful community. You've wreaked havoc on them. You have wreaked havoc on them for generations. When the judge said, this has all the elements of a death penalty case. He said, and I don't question why the state didn't ask for the death penalty. I don't question that. That's what he said. Then he talked about Firecrotch's family. And he said, in this very courtroom, they have given death sentences to people who probably didn't do as much as you. Think about it. Phantasmic is working and listening. Good morning, Phantasmic. What a statement. You and your freaking gene pool have put people to death in this state for not even doing anything as heinous as what you've done. It's something else. It certainly is. By the way, the link is pinned. Don't be shy. So I'm going to start out with what the judge said. We're going to get to a little bit of the backstory, and I really want to go into how the defense is now backpedaling. Backpedal away. You still got Alex's $600,000. You're going to have to work on some appeals now, aren't you? And a few other things. Let's get to it. Oh, I hit the wrong button. Mondays are not my day.
I'm innocent. I would never hurt my wife, Maggie, and I would never hurt my son, Papa.
You've practiced law before me, and we've seen each other at various occasions throughout the years. And it was especially heartbreaking for me to see you go in the media from being a grieving father who lost a wife and a son to being the person indicted and convicted of killing them. But within your own soul, you have to deal with that. And I know you have to see Paul and Maggie during the nighttime when you're attempting to go to sleep. Sure, they come and visit you.
And every night.
And they will continue to do so and reflect on the last time they looked you in the eyes. Well, and it might not have been you. It might have been the monster you become when you take 15, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 opioid pills. Maybe you become another person.
That was such powerful statement. So powerful. He even went on to say, sometimes it's the person physically standing in front of me, but it wasn't them because of the alcohol, because of the drugs. Now, one thing Firecrotch made sure to get across to everybody was, as he says it, the peels. All the peels. Well, I had a pocket full of peels. I had all the peels. Enough to kill a horse was supposedly going through his system every day. So I like how the judge threw it back at him. Maybe it was all those damn peels. 15, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60. Maybe it was the pills. I like when he said, sure, they're going to visit you every night in your dreams. They do all day, is what he said. And at night, he said, I'm sure that will continue to happen. Had to be the peels. Y'all's daughter, I was exactly the same way when I was listening to the sentencing, when I was out, had to do all my adulting on Friday. I thought any minute this judge is going to say, I don't disagree with the state not going after the death penalty, but I'm going to give it to you. I don't think you can do that. Maybe you can. Let's see what Jules has to say. I got a few people backstage, and we're going to see what everyone, it's an open panel, what everyone has to say. Hello, Jules.
Good morning.
How are you, honey?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Beckfest brought up a very good point. So you have the judge up there saying to him, he even told him, he complimented him many times. You have such a nice family. You have such a nice family, such nice, friendly people, which the judge obviously hasn't read too much about them. But anyway, he said, you had a nice family. To think that the judge suddenly lost his son just weeks prior to this, he could have easily excused himself and say, I'm in no emotional state to oversee a trial of a man that allegedly murdered his own son when I just lost mine. I don't know how he did it. What do you think, Jules?
He very well could have done that, but he didn't. He's an excellent man, I think.
Very, very, very. I know a lot of people want Morgan Freeman to play him in the movie. What do you guys think? You all want Morgan Freeman to play him in the movie? I think he should play himself. I think he should have a cameo.
I do too.
I don't think that
Well,
anyone could do it justice.
shout out to Greenville because that's where he was at this weekend.
I saw that. I just shared that on the screen that you sent to me.
Yeah.
Mary Say said, strange how he said I would never hurt my wife and son. Exactly.
He said intentionally.
Uh-huh. Yeah. So basically he lied in sentencing too. He lied when he was getting sentenced. Nobody accused you of hurting him. Nobody said you stepped on their toes. Nobody said you made him cry. You murdered him.
You didn't run over Maggie's leg with a golf cart.
Uh-huh. And
you're accused of blowing their heads off, basically.
Not accused anymore. He's been found guilty by a jury of his peers. He knows how that works. Yeah. And I
proud of my state.
We're proud of you too, Jules.
I'm proud of my state. They did good. Those jurors did good.
They certainly did. Didn't take them long to do it either. Now, I don't recall him during the trial when he was on the stand. We know he didn't during sentencing because he said he would never hurt them. He refrained from using the word murder. Do you find that odd?
Yeah. Well,
he knows what he's accused of. He knows what he's up to, but he refrained from using that word.
Yeah, but just like the judge said, in his mind, he didn't do it as a normal, regular person. He did it as a drug addict. More or less. You know.
He said, this could be the monster you become when you take all those pills.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know.
He didn't sound thick-tongued to me on the video.
No. But sometimes when people take opioids, like some people get very sleepy from them.
Mm-hmm.
And then some people are the exact opposite. It gives them energy. So that could explain all his, it explains all his fidgetiness and all that stuff to me is, from doing pills.
See, and I don't think it's as much. I think it's intertwined. Don't get me wrong. It's just my opinion. I don't think it's as much about the pills, as he says, as it is getting to the end of his rope with what he had going on. He knew that when Mark Tinsley did the motion to compel to find out how, he said it didn't make any sense for him to be broke. That's the reason he wanted to do the discovery into his finances. I think when that was coming down the pike, when Maggie was going to turn over financials, he knew a forensic accountant is going to figure out that he'd been stealing.
Exactly. And he told him that he was going to have to pay it out of his pocket if he didn't have any more money left.
He even said, we'll take a payment plan. We'll do it like Rent-A-Center. We'll do a Rent-A-Center for you, Alex. Now, mind you, this man was offended when someone asked if you live in a trailer or a house. Imagine when another attorney says to you, oh, you can scrape together $1 million. Well, that's not going to cut it. That's not going to cut it because I know you got a lot more, but we'll do a payment plan.
Yeah, he didn't like that.
Mm-mm.
And he definitely didn't like the fact that Paul was facing 20 to 30 years.
No. And I think that with his age, getting the alcohol illegally, all that, I don't think it would have been 20 to 30 years because it was an accident. He truly wasn't trying to kill anybody.
Right.
I think he could have navigated that part, but the money was a different story.
Oh yeah, he did not. Whew. I was so impatient during that part of the trial because I was waiting on them to put the dots together. You know what I'm saying? Tie this together, tie this into it. What's going on? But they did it in the end. They tied it all together.
Lisa Mosley, the thing is, if you go back through Mark Tinsley's in his testimony, that ties it together. When he
Oh,
explains that
that
was
seals
crazy.
it. I'm with you on that. That seals it. That and the Snapchat. Yeah.
Because when he explained that not only Alex, but other attorneys were intimidating him, trying to, saying, no, you're crossing a line here. And when he said they all kept trying to tell me how broke he is, he's broke, he's broke. And he was like, I know that he'd been settling cases. I know that he can get more money together than $1 million. So we're gonna continue with this. He has to represent his clients, and his clients are like, no, $1 million isn't going to bring my daughter back. But
Right.
something has to stop this family. Lisa has a question. She says, do you think Buster and the rest of AM's side of the family think he did this? With the guilty verdict and everything they've heard, do you think that now that they have the realization that he actually did it?
Not his side of the family, but I think that Maggie's side does.
Thank you, Ryan, for the super sticker. Ryan says, I know there was no life insurance on Maggie and Paul, but he straight said the hunting lodge property was in Maggie's name and it was worth quite a bit. Yep. Now, what about the beach house?
That's
Is he
50-50.
okay?
I'm going to send you some pictures in May.
I know you're going to be there.
Mm-hmm.
So the only thing that's untouchable from what I'm understanding is the money that was left to Firecrotch when his father passed away. That's in a trust. That can't be touched, but the rest of it can. I did. Angel said, did you hear that Buster collapsed outside the courthouse? I did. Was it humid in South Carolina that day, or do you think that it actually hit him that his dad did this? Or could it been the hecklers outside yelling, you're next, Buster?
Oh, I didn't know about that.
There were people outside heckling him. Yeah. When Buster walked out,
He collapsed.
he collapsed. Yeah.
Now, I do think that it's hit Buster different, but I think his brothers and sisters and stuff, I think they stand behind
Mm-hmm.
Alex. But I don't know. Buster doesn't ever sound real enthused about talking to him on the jailhouse calls.
The jailhouse calls, I hope they keep releasing those because that was entertainment for days.
Oh.
When he traded the honey bun and the ramen, I believe it was, or the Pop-Tart for the remote control, I was like, you're already making friends in there, dude. You already know the system.
He probably put half of them in there.
That's another thing I was thinking about. When he goes to the pen. Well, I guess he's there now in Colombia. There's
Yeah.
going to be quite a few people that he's put behind bars.
He'll go from Colombia after 30 days. They'll assign him to a different state prison.
So he gets a tour of the state, huh?
Yeah, like he goes there for only 30 days for some kind of assessments or something. Some type of assessment. 30-day assessment, and then he will be placed in, I guess, whichever. I hope it's not near me, though.
Do you have a state pen by you?
About 45 miles away.
Okay.
Should
Somebody
I take some
asked
honey
about-
bun?
Take some honey buns. Yeah, you're going to need some contraband with you. Honey buns, Pop-Tarts, ramen. Jinbug, she took some pictures of some honey buns at the grocery store yesterday and said, I wish I had Alex's address. And I posted in there, send him some honey buns. I don't think you can do that. Now, I just saw somebody was asking about Stephen Smith and how that is connected. I'm just going to play a clip real quick. It's easier to look at it than it is for me to explain.
Right.
More than 7 years since 19-year-old Stephen Smith was found lying dead on the side of the road in the Low Country. The SLED reopened the case into his death shortly after the murders of Maggie and Paul Murdaugh.
The agency says they're, quote, making progress and the case remains active and ongoing. Blair Sables in Hampton County with more.
Somebody out there knows something.
It's July 8th, 2015. A driver on his way to work calls 911 to report a body lying in the middle of the street on Sandy Run Road. The victim turns out to be 19-year-old Stephen Smith, a shy teen, but a funny and outgoing one to his inner circle. Smith was openly gay in the small rural South Carolina town he grew up in.
One of my favorite quotes that he had said to his mom was, God doesn't make mistakes. I am who I am, and God did not make a mistake.
The blunt force trauma to his head appears as a possible gunshot wound to the first responders on the scene, but the coroner's office later rules his death a hit and run. He also has injuries to his left arm and left hand. More than 7 years have passed since, and the mysterious details of his final hours have weighed on his mother, Sandy Smith, and the rest of the family.
It's draining.
Susanna
It's
Andrews has become a
frustrating.
close friend to them in their time of need. The family rejects the hit and run theory. South Carolina Highway Patrol's initial investigation finds no vehicle debris, skid marks, or injuries consistent with someone being struck by a vehicle. A heated discussion between Trooper Todd Proctor and pathologist Dr. Aaron Presnell reveals that the death was ruled this way because Smith was found in the road. Blue paint chips are found on Smith's clothes but cannot be traced to a specific make or model. And Smith's car was found about 3 miles away on Bamberg Highway. It won't start, but investigators find his wallet inside. The gas cap also unscrewed. His family reports he would have never left the car, calling him skittish. And his twin sister, Stephanie, also tells authorities that her brother had become very secretive about 2 weeks prior to the incident. Documents show investigators fielding tips about the Murdaugh family in the days and months following his death. The first tip comes in early August, suggesting swirling rumors of a relationship between Smith and Buster Murdaugh, Alec Murdaugh's eldest and now only surviving son. An investigator also fields a tip about another possible suspect, but that tipster tells them he passed along the information at the request of a well-known family patriarch, former solicitor Randy Murdaugh. Andrew says in the records she has the Murdaugh name is mentioned 40 times.
Where there's smoke, there's fire. There has to be something to it.
Eventually, the leads dried up and the case went cold. That was until the murders of Maggie and Paul Murdaugh in June of 2021. That same month, the South Carolina Law Enforcement Division reopened Smith's case based on information they had gathered during that initial murder investigation. What that information is, though, still has yet to be revealed. SLED reports they have made progress in the last year and a half, but to this day, no suspects have been formally named in relation to Smith's death. No interviews with anyone from the Murdaugh family are ever noted in Highway Patrol's documents. Andrews believes the answers the family have been so desperate to learn are out there, and she's urging anyone who knows something to speak up now.
Put yourself in Sandy's shoes as a parent, that it being your child. Do the right thing and come forward.
According to SLED, the case is still active and ongoing.
So that's a little bit of that story. They tried to pass this off as a hit and run. It's rumored that Buster had a relationship with Stephen. Stephen was tutoring him. Now, I don't know what that's all about. And he was killed on the side of the road. Some people said they were driving down the road, they saw him and stuck something out the window and it hit him. Well, that would be a really good coincidence and aim, if you ask me. I think Stephen was followed. There's a lot going on with that story. I would love to know, when they were investigating Maggie and Pawpaw, what they came across to reopen Stephen's case. Do you have any idea? Any guess, Jules?
No, I don't.
Because that's going to get wild. And Buster seemed very confident, very stoic in the courtroom, listening to his father, listening to these very high paid, influential attorneys. One of his father's attorney is a senator, for fuck's sake. So he's watching this. He walked out and he hears people heckling, "You're next, Buster. Justice for Stephen." He collapses like butter in the hot sun.
Yeah, I believe they ought to go after him and see. I mean, what did you just say? He did what in school? He was tutored by Stephen?
That's what they just said on that news clip.
I couldn't, on my end, I couldn't hear it. That's funny because Buster obviously wasn't very smart. I mean, he cheated in college and got kicked out, so.
Yeah. Buster he's a class A dumbass for sure. John, don't forget the link is pinned. John said, "I'm guessing that there was something on Paul's phone, which we know the authorities went into the very guts of that phone." Let's look at that. Let's look at the guts of the phone for a second. Some people haven't seen the video. The video brought it home for a lot of people, but not 100% the jury. They said it wasn't so much the video. It wasn't so much the Snapchat video. Yes, you can hear Alex. You can hear Bubba the dog. You can hear Maggie. You can hear that. They said it wasn't so much that. It was Alex himself on the stand. But then you hear the defense going, "No, it was a wonderful idea." It's like, dude, are you listening to the jury? They're saying him on the stand, no bueno, bad job.
Alec Murdaugh
Not believable.
potentially destroyed by his son's own video.
Get back.
Prosecutors revealing a 58-second cell phone video recorded by Paul Murdaugh directly contradicting Alec Murdaugh's story, placing him at the murder scene minutes before his wife and son were shot to death. In the video, you can see Paul going into a pen on the family's property to check on a friend's dog. In the background, you hear other voices.
Hey, he's got a bird in his mouth. Bubba. Damn, Bubba.
You can clearly hear Alex getting after Bubba. Listen again.
Bird in his mouth. Bubba. Damn, Bubba. It's a guinea. This is a chicken. Come here, Bubba. Come here, Cash. Come here, Bubba. Cash. Quit.
Murdaugh claimed He didn't go to the family's kennels that night until he found his wife and son's bodies.
I was up at the house. I laid down, took a nap on the couch, probably, I don't know, 25, 30 minutes.
In emotional testimony, close family friend Rogan Gibson recalling how he talked to Paul Murdaugh that night about his injured dog. Paul telling him he'd take a video.
Did you hear any other voices when you were on the phone with Paul about 8:40?
I did.
And what voices did you hear?
I heard Miss Maggie,
And who else did you hear?
and I thought it was Mr. Elliott that I heard.
Cell phone records show Paul took that video right after that call. Minutes later, he and his mother were dead.
Did you ever get that video?
I did not.
Police later showed Gibson that video from inside the kennel.
And what voices did you hear?
Paul's, Miss Maggie, Mr. Elliott.
And how sure are you now?
Positive.
100%?
That's correct.
Prosecutors playing that video for him again in court.
Can you point out Alec Murdaugh, the person whose voice you recognize in this video in this courtroom, please?
Sitting right there in the gray jacket.
But the defense pushing back, painting a portrait of a happy family.
And they were loving to each other and to Paul and Buster and their friends, correct?
That's correct.
And can you think of any circumstance that you can envision, knowing them as you do, where Alec would brutally murder Paul and Maggie?
Not that I can think of.
And a cell phone expert testified that Alec Murdaugh's call logs leading up to the murders are missing. He said it appeared Murdaugh deleted that data.
What? Nah, Alex. Delete data? Try to hide something? That's very eerie when you think about it. Within seconds, minutes of that video, we're chasing Bubba with the chicken. Next thing you know, they're dead. That's really eerie to think about. Zarp, welcome to the channel, Zarp. Loving your comments. Zarp said, I can't believe he got the chicken out of the dog's mouth, then turned around and took his family out within minutes. What on earth was going through his mind? Think about that. He was on a mission. He was going to get his thing done. He was going to get it done. And even Bubba with the chicken didn't deter him, didn't throw him off his game at all.
Nope. He called he had Maggie come up to Moselle on purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And he called Paul there on purpose.
Had him cornered. He had him cornered when you think about it. He cornered him.
Yeah. Yeah. He knew what he was going to do.
And I know that Maggie isn't what you would consider a likable person. She's done some pretty bad things in her time on this planet. But imagine the look on her face when she realizes that her son's being murdered by her husband.
Right. I don't think she was running to her baby like Creighton Waters said. I think she was running for her life.
That's what I'm thinking too. That's what I'm thinking. I got Rowena backstage. Let's see what Rowena's thinking. Then I got Jeannie coming up, and I got a couple others. Let's see what's going on. Hello, Rowena. What are you thinking? We have no Rowena. Hello, Jeannie. What's going on?
Morning, Brooks. Morning, Jules.
Good morning. Jeannie.
Well, I'm getting withdrawals. Murdaugh trial withdrawals.
I know. We're ready for round. I guess we'll be on round 99 soon.
Yeah. Well, I probably have an unpopular opinion, but I believe that the defense, they did a really good job in the beginning for reasonable doubt. I really do. If it hadn't been for Alec to go on the stand, I believe it would have been a hung jury.
Oh, I
agree with that.
Yeah.
I agree because they were honing it home. I mean, even when his attorney said, "I thought we were here for a murder trial." All
Yeah.
you're doing is talking about his financials. I kept thinking myself, that's all you're doing. We know that he is we know he's a dirty lawyer.
Yeah.
This isn't a dirty lawyer trial. This is a murder trial.
Yeah, and it was all, in my opinion, it was all about the finances. They hardly spent any time discussing Paul and Maggie. But he had didn't Alec, I don't know. I don't know a lot about law and everything, but didn't he not have the right to plead the fifth, considering he never went to trial yet for those charges?
Yeah, nobody's required to testify. Nobody.
Yes, I heard him talking about that on one of the shows. Yes, he could have plead the fifth, but he went ahead and admitted it. He's gonna try to. He wants the financials to go to a federal court, so he'll be in federal prison instead of a state prison because federal is much nicer than state.
Okay. Yeah, I believe that SLED, they did not do a good job at all, at all, at all. I mean, one of them lied on the stand.
Which one? A SLED agent lied? What happened?
Yes, and said that they found Alex's shirt covered in blood. And when they went to test it for blood, there was no blood on the shirt. They completely lied. This is like a preliminary hearing that they did. And they put him on the stand and he completely lied and said that his shirt was covered in blood. And it was not.
I'm really surprised with the missteps from law enforcement, which happens. It happens a lot. And with the political influence and who he is, yada, 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 that they didn't get a mistrial.
Yeah, and if you watch one of the videos of the crime scene, you see police walking all over the crime scene, all over it. There was no preserving the crime scene at all. They even put a blanket on Maggie and Paul. Like, they didn't test for prints. They didn't test for what they should be testing for.
They
Rex,
also let.
go ahead, Jules.
Go ahead.
Oh no, I was just
They
grabbing
they also let all his lawyer buddies in and walk around the scene too.
Rexy said the SLED agent went with the preliminary findings. He didn't lie. Also, it wasn't at the trial. Yeah, you're right, Jules. All the lawyer buddies walked around. John Marvin was there. With all of that being said, and the leniency given, because they didn't think that Alex had anything to do with it. I think they believed that it was some sort of vigilante for the boat accident. Considering all of these missteps, when you think about it, it's amazing that we have a guilty verdict.
Yeah, and even when Alec called 911, first thing he mentioned was boat accident. When the first SLED agent got there, the first thing he mentioned was the boat accident. So he was trying to bring that narrative to the police, like, this is,
somebody from that boat accident did it.
Yeah. Another thing that got me too was how they actually said how the time of death, and how they came up with that idea of the time of death. they put a thermometer underneath their armpit, which made no sense to me.
Under the armpits, that's how I
Under
used to take my kid's temperature. That's not how you do it with a dead body.
exactly.
That is how they did it. That's
Yep.
what was testified to.
Yep. To the time of death, they put a thermometer under the armpit of Megan and Paul for their time of death. That's how they figured it out.
That's badass, let me tell you. That is crazy. I just, I totally, I must have blocked that out.
That was when what was that lady's name? The one that's all,
Oh, with the glasses, yeah.
the one Reamer, Dr. Reamer.
Raymer, yeah.
Reamer, something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think when she testified the first time is when she told about that, Brooks.
Yeah.
Okay.
You probably missed that.
I must have blocked that out. So, okay, let me ask you this. On panel, in chat, that being said, what's the likelihood of an appeal? We know he's going to ask for an appeal. We know there's going to be a hearing on an appeal.
I believe he has he has grounds for an appeal. I believe that, like 100%.
Well, pretty much everybody gets an appeal. But
Yeah.
what we're talking about here, do you think it's going to help with his appeal?
Considering the fact that he went and got on the stand, I believe 100% it ruins him. I mean, he should have never got on the stand. If he had not got on the stand, there would have been a hung jury.
Mm-hmm.
But there is grounds for an appeal, I found. Like some of the things that were done that should have never been done, that were mistakes that were made. Yeah.
Well, I mean, pretty much everybody gets an appeal. I'm not concerned about the fool getting an appeal. He's got some of the best lawyers in the country. He will appeal this decision. Do you think it could be overturned? Because the appeal is going to be based on not what he said the first go around, but by mistakes made by SLED, the crime scene. I don't know.
I think so. I think it will be overturned.
Then he goes to federal prison for the rest of his life for financial crimes. That could be.
Oh, for sure he's going to either way, he's going to spend the rest of his life in jail. But
yeah,
I think
he's facing life.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I believe that he does not want to portray himself as a murderer of his son and his wife. This is what I believe. He's fine with the crime, the fraud. I think he's fine with that because he openly admitted it to it, right? But he doesn't want everybody to see him as a murderer of his son and wife.
Well, want in one hand and shit in the other, Alex, because the cat is out of the bag. Your reputation cannot be put back together.
Yeah.
So I know we've been talking a lot about the boat wreck, and it's just my personal opinion that the boat wreck, if it wasn't for the boat wreck, and I'm not blaming Mark Tinsley, but the boat wreck is one thing. I think that he was prepared to navigate his son through these criminal proceedings. I really do. But if it wasn't for Mark Tinsley, the motion to compel to find out just how broke are you, Alex? Because I'm not buying it. I don't believe it. And when he's hearing figures to the tune of 40 mil, the only way to make it go away is to make Paul go away, Maggie go away, because she was going to be handing stuff over. I don't think she realized that what she was going to hand over, a forensic accountant, was going to have no problem navigating through and understanding that somebody's been stealing from somebody somewhere. Where's all the money? And I still want to know where all the money's at. Lawyers don't bury stuff in coffee cans. Lawyers don't put money in checking accounts. Where's the money? I don't believe it's all gone.
I don't either.
No,
There's
no.
no way.
I believe what their defense was for the boat accident was that somebody else was driving the boat, that it was not Paul that was driving the boat. That was their defense.
Well, good luck. He was driving the damn thing. Everybody
It
said he
was.
was driving
Yeah.
it. They were trying to pin it on another kid. They would have this is how it's
Connor. They
supposed
tried to put Connor.
Yeah. Yeah. That's who they blamed. Yeah.
and neither Alex nor Maggie nor Papa nor Bus had any issue putting that kid in jail for the rest of his natural life for something they damn sure knew Papa did.
Yeah.
Let's
Yeah.
look. Right. They had no issue with that.
Dramatic fall from grace and legal dynasty that lasted for a century in South Carolina. So how did things go so wrong? Many point to Paul Murdaugh's drunken boat crash that left a teenage girl dead as the beginning of the end.
I sentence you to prison for the rest of your natural life.
It's the fall of the House of Murdaugh. The 5-generation dynasty ended today in a courtroom where the Murdaughs once reigned supreme. 48 Hours national correspondent Nikki Batiste.
Well, I'd say this has been the epic fall from grace. Alec Murdaugh and his family really ran this community for a long, long time. And seeing him in this courtroom in a jail jumpsuit this morning, being sentenced to life in prison for murdering his wife and son, this will change this community and the reputation of this family forever.
And this tragedy may have been the start of their fall. In 2019, Alex's drunken son, Paul, crashed a boat carrying 5 of his friends into a bridge.
There's 6 of us and 1 is missing.
19-year-old Mallory Beach was killed. Paul was caught on security camera in a convenience store buying $50 worth of alcohol that night. He used his brother Buster's driver's license because he was underage. Surveillance video also shows Paul and his friends on a dock. He's unsteady on his feet. There's Mallory with her boyfriend, the last image of her alive. At the boat crash scene, police treat Paul Murdaugh with kid gloves, a sign of the clout the Murdaugh name carried in South Carolina's Low Country.
But listen, you're not in trouble. I ain't want to call that. I need to call her. I need to call her.
But Mallory's boyfriend vents his fury at Paul.
Are you smiling like this?
In the hospital after the crash, Paul showed no remorse, even reportedly flirting with the nurses. He had still not faced justice 2 years later when he was murdered by his father. In his testimony, Alex Murdaugh tried to shift blame for the murders onto people angry at Paul over the crash.
They hated Paul Murdaugh, and they had anger in their heart.
Bill Nettles is the former U.S. attorney in South Carolina.
That is a courthouse where his granddad and his dad and he had spoken to juries before as prosecutors. He probably had to believe that these are my people. And if I just go up there and look them in the eye and tell them I didn't do it, they will believe me.
Mallory's parents were in court today to see Alex Murdaugh sentenced.
It's an outcome that we were hoping for.
The boat crash resulted in civil lawsuits that exposed Alex Murdaugh's financial crimes. Nikki Batiste, who reports on the Murdaugh case in a special 48 Hours Saturday, says without the boating accident, none of this might have happened.
There was a hearing scheduled on June 10th, 3 days after Maggie and Paul Murdaugh were killed, where a lot of Alec Murdaugh's financial records, his alleged financial crimes, would have come to light. His whole world was about to crumble.
Murdaugh's lawyers say they plan to appeal the verdict.
Imagine being, of course they'll appeal. They have every right to appeal. People appeal and appeal and appeal and appeal, whatever they can do. Of course they do. Imagine being Mallory's family. They've lost their daughter. They know what happened. They know about the cover up. They know. They know what they were trying to do to avenge their daughter's death. And to know that to save a reputation and to save his money, that he murdered his own wife and son. Imagine how they must, they don't feel any guilt, but imagine just, they have to be like, is this has got to be a dream. When are we going to wake up? The boating accident was as bad as it gets. And now he gets sued, and to save his name and his fortune, he kills his wife and son. This is what we've been dealing with. We didn't even realize the totality of how low this family would go.
Brooks,
What?
a while ago you were talking about his money.
Mhm.
I just thought of this while the video was playing. Those lawyers were already paid for. He already paid Dick Harpootlian and Jim for Paw. Those were his attorneys originally.
Yeah. Yeah, I saw the old news clips. Yeah.
So, I mean, he didn't like have to come up with a whole bunch of money for them if he already had them retained.
Well, he had paid for the attorneys, and I want to say that I heard 600,000. It all got lumped up into one at one point. So that was for Paul, that was for Alex, and going forward with the financial crimes, they may have to relook at that. But now for the verdict, when a jury or a judge in a civil trial says you owe this family $15 million, that was a little different than paying his attorneys.
Right.
Thank you, Sue, for the super sticker. And it's an insane amount of money. They set up like a wedding venue and set it up like a law office. I want to say like the wedding venue was like 20 grand a month or some crazy amount. It might have been a week. I don't know. Did you hear about the wedding venue place? Where her
No.
Yeah.
No, I never heard that.
Crazy. $600,000. And I think that's one of the reasons, and Buster knows this. I think it's one of the reasons he's flipping off Mark Tinsley. I think it's the reason he was so shitty to Chris.
He definitely flipped him off, didn't he?
He's on my thumbnail. Let's see if Rowena's connected now. Rowena, what you thinking?
Hey, can you hear me now?
Yeah,
Rowena,
let's look at Angel's super sticker she put up. Thank you, Angel P. She says Alex wasn't home, but somehow told him only that the dogs pushed her. They said on a 911 call that she was only mumbling from a head injury. She said, I don't believe it. Now she's talking about Gloria Satterfield. We haven't even touched that yet. Yeah. I don't think for a minute. I'm exactly with you, Angel. I don't think for a minute that those dogs knocked her over. So Rowena, what's the
Angel?
Hey, oh my goodness, me and my husband have been addicted to this. Addicted. I think we've watched every single thing.
Do
The
y'all
Satterfield.
Go ahead,
Can you hear
Rowena.
me? Oh, I'm sorry. The Satterfield trial for the money, because now I know that they did exhume her body and did an autopsy, but the Satterfield trial is supposed to start next month, and then the boat trial is supposed to start in August. So, and I totally agree. I think the boat pushed him over the edge. Maggie writes a check to a charity and it bounces. I think he was getting hit on every end, and I completely 100%. I tell you one thing that I think, because I thought hung jury until the closing arguments. And when and I can't remember his name, I'm sorry, the prosecutor that did the closing arguments, he put common sense into it.
So whereas they fell flat in different areas, driving it home because they seem to be more honed in on the financials, their closing arguments.
Yeah, and I think, that all goes to motive, which no, they don't have to prove motive, but that's what I think drove him to the end. And I mean, he's like, hey, have so and so, give you $5,000-$6,000 so you can have you a drink at the bar and get you a golf shirt and I'll pay you back. What? What? With these sticks? No, boo. Mm-mm. And I'm glad.
We lost Rowena. And I know people say, well, you don't have to prove motive. You don't have to prove motive. Well, no, you don't have to, but you're talking to human beings on a jury. It helps immensely when you can explain to them the haps. This is
Yep.
why this person did this.
Yep. And yeah, they did, and that's why I thought he was brilliant. Like, we don't have to prove motive, but this is just the icing on the cupcake. Here it is. And as far as appeals go, they have 10 days. Okay, so they're going to definitely file an appeal. We knew they'd file an appeal if it was, guilty. But the statistics show that, okay, everybody can file an appeal. Whether it is granted and you get another trial, that's 4%. 4% of every appeal filed is actually granted. If the defendant takes the stand, because all that will be looked at and what he said. If the defendant takes the stand, then only it goes down to 2%. So 2% of every appeal where a defendant takes the stand, the appeal is actually granted.
Mhm.
Just because it's filed does not mean that it's granted and he's going to get a new trial. So yeah, I think that. I think that I don't know, and I could be very wrong, but I have looked and looked and looked and looked. They showed Buster continuously. They showed him walking into court the day of sentencing. I can't hear anything.
Yeah, Rowena, we lost you for a minute, but you're back.
Oh, okay. My phone's acting up. But I don't know the last thing I heard. But I have not seen a picture of Buster collapsed at the courthouse or getting in the car. And I think about all the cameras that were there. Somebody would have gotten a picture.
Mhm.
I think I haven't seen a picture, and until I see a picture, that's proof.
Well, they
Um,
also said that it was after when there was no news reporters around and stuff like that, is when he collapsed.
there was news reporters around for hours.
Yeah.
Hours. He left that courthouse. People were saying he collapsed at when he came out of the courthouse, not when he arrived at, buses, whatever, you know. So that's the only thing. I mean, that's just a little thing, I really don't. I have my opinions about him too anyway. I do feel sorry that he lost his brother and his mother.
His brother, his mother, his dad. He might be joining his dad, though. If what people are saying is true and he is somehow responsible for Stephen Smith's murder,
Yeah.
he might not need to worry about trying to get back into law school. And the collapsing could actually just be one of the media. The New York Post is reporting it, and everybody, they're all running with this story. I don't know. I mean, I have a feeling he was shitting his britches when he came outside and all of these people were screaming, "You're next, Buster." He wasn't walking tall any longer.
Now I heard, and this, like I said, I ain't got nothing.
What's that? We lost Rowena. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if it's just something made up. But no way in the world did he come out and hear all these people screaming, "You're next, Buster. You're next. Justice for Stephen Smith." And that not hit. So nobody's seen a picture of him passing out. Nobody's seen him in the fetal position on the ground. I don't know. I don't know.
From what I heard about Stephen Smith is when they found his body on the side of the road, he still had his sneakers on. And they were saying if it was a hit and run, he wouldn't have had anything on his feet. They would have flew off.
He didn't. He had his shoes on.
Yeah,
He only had a scrape on his elbow and shoulder, and the rest of the damage was to his head.
Yeah.
Horrible.
It's in the middle of the road, right smack dab on the yellow line.
And I just don't believe that the coincidence and sticking something out the window and they got just the right shot. I have a feeling that
no.
Hey, they moved him.
They could have ran him off the road. I mean, it could have been something like that.
Or he could have really ran out of gas.
And
or they could have siphoned that gas.
Yeah.
So he would run out of gas.
Yeah.
And then did what they did and took him and threw him out at that location in the road.
Now, that sounds a little more probable to me.
Yeah.
I think it sounds set up. And also, you don't know what they could have been drunk and just I think there was some sort of threat made to expose Buster about something.
Yes.
But to become a murderer like that and not talk to his dad about handling it or something like that, that's what's kind of out there for me.
I think they just thought they were teaching him a lesson or whatever. And
well, did I hear right that they found a bullet hole in his head?
No, that's not.
Okay.
At first, when they first found him, they thought it was a bullet hole. But after the autopsy, it was blunt
force trauma.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I couldn't get my words out.
Bruno said, with all these crimes, it's a pattern. See, it really surprised me with the whole Alex situation. I said to myself, okay, they brought up the two-shooter theory, which that was brought up before they even went to trial. It was someone else, some other guy, that defense. That's always a big one. That's a popular one. That one's never going to go away. But I thought, why did he do this himself? He's got all kinds of scumbags around him that would have gone out there, killed Maggie and Paul, and never to have been seen again. They could have been in the Bahamas, never come back to America. Why did he do it himself?
But to use two guns, that was, I mean, him being stupid as he is, I mean, that was a pretty good idea, though, to use two guns to make it look like two people were there.
Mm-hmm.
So what did he do? He just, he shot Paul with one gun, changed his gun, shot him in the head, and then shot Maggie with the other gun. Like, where, I mean, I can't imagine.
If you remember, somebody testified that that they always kept their guns on the side by side.
Yes.
Well, the golf cart side by side sits right there at the dog kennels behind them.
Yeah, and Maggie had hurt or hit her leg on the side by side, which I'm assuming was to go to Paul when she did that.
I think she was running from Paul, running away, trying to get away.
Yeah, I don't think she was running towards her baby. No. It was a good thought to put in the jury's head, but no, I don't think that was going on. And my question is, I'm not doubting any of this. I'm not saying, oh no, Alex didn't do it, the jury's wrong. What I'm saying is, why, with all his money and all the scumbags he knows and all his connection, did he do this himself? I'm just wondering, I would love to know, why the hell did you do this yourself? And also, give it up. Just a few seconds after the Snapchat video where you're talking about the Bubba getting the chicken, they're dead. Where did you go? Where did you go so fast and someone show up just at the right time? No, that would never fly with anybody.
He got his cousin to shoot him. Like he could, like you said, he could have picked anybody in the world to, to shoot Paul and Maggie. He even got his cousin to shoot him.
Yeah. Oh,
You
cousin
know?
Ann.
And I don't know if he was trying to be stupid or if he really seriously is stupid. But when the prosecutor asked him, well, what did you and Maggie and Paul talk about when you were down at the Kettles? And he just he couldn't think of one word. Not one word he could not think of and tell them what they talked about. I mean, you talk to your husband or wife and you'll be like, okay, I'm going back to the house, or I'm going to go to, his mom's or something like that. He could not think of one word to say.
Well, because there's not a lot of conversation going on when you're ambushing your whole family.
Exactly.
It just seems to me it's a little personal. He had just paid Cousin Eddie almost 20, 30 grand a week before. He still had money around. There's money hidden.
Yeah.
You can't convince me there's not money hidden. Let's look at what the defense had to say. Hang on.
You don't dispute that Alec Murdaugh is heard on that video, nor do you dispute that makes his initial reckoning about where he was and when false. Your argument is, but he doesn't sound like a killer in it. Am I right?
Correct.
Now, why isn't the lie enough, Jim?
Well, first, the lie is clearly problematic. In and of itself, it's a lie. In and of itself, it puts him down at the kennels at 8:44. But in and of itself, it doesn't mean he killed them. What you have to buy into is that they were dead at 8:48 or 8:49, and that's the whole cell phone data. That if someone is found dead, an hour and a half after they last used their phone, then they are dead when they stopped using their phone last. That was the state's whole time of death analysis, and we pushed back on that really hard, and that juror obviously disregarded it, and it seemed like all the other jurors disregarded it, and they were, according to the one juror that you played the interview of, was more convinced that he did it because he lied about being down there. I mean, that was problematic, and the way we addressed it is put Alec on the stand, and by the time he testified, he was a lying, cheating, stealing lawyer who would steal money from his own mother and grandmother, and the view of the evidence that was in front of the jury.
Everybody
one
has...
other thing.
Go ahead, please.
When that juror said he never cried, he could not have been talking about never crying about Paul and Maggie, because he bawled the whole time on the stand. I believe, in fairness to that.
Okay, this is a bad look. This is a bad look when your defense attorney comes in after a jury's decision and basically says that juror didn't know what they were talking about. When you disrespect the juror system, that's a bad look. I don't know what this fool is even talking about. He's out of his mind. I think what that juror, and we're going to look at that clip in a little bit, what he's saying is he didn't buy the tears. He didn't believe that all the boo-hooing and the snot dripping connected from his knee to his nose. I think what he's saying is, I didn't buy the tears. Bad look. It's a bad look when a defense attorney or a prosecutor doesn't get their way and they downplay what the jury decided. Not good.
A juror he was talking about, he never cried about stealing money from his clients. I assume that's what it's about.
Well, or even this. I mean, it's his reckoning that there weren't enough tears for him to equate it with crying. He thought it was acting. Whatever. He's entitled to his opinion, obviously. How he applies it to the facts is what's going to wind up being relevant to you. And the decision to put Murdaugh on, just to make it clear to everybody, and I've been saying this as a mediocre attorney, you work for him. So if Murdaugh says, I'm going on the stand, you could, of course, advise him. We think it's a good move. We think it's a bad move. Here's why. But at the end of the day, Mr. Murdaugh, any defendant, decides what they're going to do for themselves. Do you believe it was the wrong move to put him on the stand?
Looking back on it, actually, no. And that may surprise people, but it changed from day to day. But frankly, Chris, at the time of a point in the trial where we had to make that decision.
Idiot. Again, if you don't want to answer the question, you're an attorney. You know how to get around the question. When you have juror after juror after juror saying him on the stand was not a good idea. I didn't buy his act. I already knew that he was a trial attorney because you guys told us. So how is he now saying with the jury that found him guilty within 45 minutes? How do you say, well, at the time, well, you know what? Back in the day, I thought it was a great idea to get a spiral perm. Okay? I thought it was a great idea at the time. Someone asked me now about getting spiral perms in my hair every 6 weeks to the point where I had burns on my scalp. I'm like, no, not a good idea. All he has to do is say, well, in hindsight, it obviously wasn't a good idea. Never going to do that again.
All the bad act evidence was already before the jury. I mean, one reason, as you know, you're a lawyer and anyone who tries cases, particularly criminal cases, one of the things you consider is what do you open the door to when you put the witness on the stand? And here, had we put him up and none of the financial crimes had been introduced in the evidence, we would have likely opened the door to introduction of the financial crimes. But that had already been done. And he was so beat up at that point, frankly, we had to throw a Hail Mary by putting him on the stand to explain the lie, explain why he cheated, explain why he stole, and because of his drug addiction. And we had hoped that jurors had experience, whether family members or relatives, of how drug addicts lie, cheat, and steal, and that they would have understanding of that. And obviously that did not work.
Did he
okay, so at least he says that. He goes, well, and obviously that did not work. John said, I think that. He said, ultimately, it was Alex, the client, who made the decision. Chris Cuomo gave Jim the perfect window to jump out of when he said, he works for you. He wanted to take the stand. He won't admit that. He won't just say, yeah, we advised against it. We advised for him not to take the stand. Defense 101, don't let your client talk to anyone. It's never a good idea. They're being accused of some of the most heinous things the human mind has ever heard of and can't wrap their mind around. You don't really let them talk to anybody. Just let us do the talking. All we're doing is answering back to the state when we can. It's their job to prove it. Don't help them prove it. So instead of just saying, this was his decision, we advised against it, instead he says, we just call it a Hail Mary. It's a Hail Mary.
think he did a good job on the stand? Did he regret taking the stand? Did he insist on going on the stand?
He wanted to testify the whole time, and it was a consultation. I'll tell you, we did not disagree with his analysis, which was this jury is going to want to hear from me, particularly because I'm a lawyer, I'm articulate, and I'm accused of killing my wife and son. And he's not wrong about that. But as
as a tactical matter, you have to weigh that against the jury's ability to not hold it against him if he doesn't testify. And in any event, like I said, we had all this other evidence we had to deal with that had come in under this pretense of motive, which it really wasn't. It was a character assault that worked for the state.
For more than a month, the jury in the Alex Murdaugh trial has heard about the.
All right, so that's what he's got to say. It's a Hail Mary. Basically, he wanted to take the stand instead of just saying we advised against it, or he could have said, look, we've been watching the jury. They were really, really hanging on every word Creighton Waters had to say. We felt like we were losing, and we thought, what would be more compelling than to put a seasoned trial attorney on the stand to tell his story to the jury? And also, don't forget to try to get their sympathies with all the boat wreck and peels. Got to bring up those peels. All the peels. He couldn't, it's all the peels that made him do it, but he didn't do it.
I believe what the defense was trying to do is say that, okay, I admit to, stealing all this money, okay, but I do not admit to killing Paul and Maggie. I think it was the worst mistake on the defense's side to put him on the stand. But what sealed the deal was the video, Paul's video.
Bubba and the chicken. Bubba and the chicken.
Yeah, of him being there at that time.
We understand money. We understand people steal. We understand people take peels. We weren't born last night. We were born at night, but not last night. We're supposed to believe that he was consuming 60 peels a day. Where's all the rest of the money? That's what I'd like to know. Where's all the rest of the money? And I agree 100%. Because someone's taken a hell of pills and because they steal from their clients, because they're a stealing bastard, that's a far stretch to a murderer.
Yeah.
And I think you're right. That's what they were trying to do. They were just trying to say, look at him. We've shamed him to nothing. We've shamed him to nothing. He's a dirty ass lawyer, man, and he's got a pill problem.
Yep.
But that doesn't make you a murderer.
Exactly. And I'm pretty sure that's what the defense was going for when they thought about him taking the stand. Like, okay, he admitted to all of this, but he did not admit to killing Paul and Maggie.
And he'd be crazy to admit to that. He'd be crazy. Don't do the state's job for him. Yeah, a lot of people are saying that money's in the Bahamas. Makes the most sense to me. So the defense attorney is basically being kind of shitty to what the jurors are saying since they're coming out and talking. I think this is the juror in particular he's talking about. Now, this is a little lengthy. We're going to break it up a little bit, but listen to what this juror said.
On all counts, the once prominent attorney convicted of the double murder of his wife and son.
We're going to talk to the lead prosecutor in just a moment. First, Eva Pilgrim is at the courthouse in Walterboro, South Carolina. And Eva, you have an exclusive interview with one of the jurors.
That's right, George. That juror telling us what happened inside the deliberation room. Moments after that verdict was read, Alec Murdaugh turning back to his surviving son, mouthing, "I'm sorry, I love you." That once prominent attorney now convicted of murdering his wife and son.
Alec, did you kill your wife and son?
After 28 days, 75 witnesses, and less than 3 hours of deliberation, the jury finding Alec Murdaugh guilty of killing his wife Maggie and son Paul.
Guilty, 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 guilty.
Murdaugh appearing emotionless as the unanimous verdict was read. His surviving son Buster, who testified in support of his dad, putting his head in his hands. The defense asking for a mistrial, but the judge standing firm.
The jury has now considered the evidence for a significant period of time and the evidence of guilt is overwhelming, and I deny the motion.
The disgraced attorney then taken out of the courtroom. Now, in an ABC News exclusive, juror Craig Moyer breaking his silence.
So the judge, before he was presiding over this epic saga of a trial, had already said the amount of evidence is overwhelming, and he's going to be presiding over everything, all of it.
Revealing how the jury came to their decision.
When you first got in the room, you took a vote?
It was 2 not guilty, 1 not sure, and 9 guilty.
What was your vote?
Guilty.
From the start?
Yes.
Moyer says it didn't take long to get everyone on the same page.
We started deliberating, going through the evidence. Everybody was pretty much talking, and about 45 minutes later, after all our deliberating, we figured it out.
So it took basically 45 minutes for you guys to come to a decision?
Probably about 45, maybe an hour.
That's really fast.
Yeah, the evidence was clear.
He says it was this piece of video featuring Alec's voice at the crime scene moments before the murders that convinced him.
I hear his voice clearly, and everybody else could too.
You know, and the video is something that no matter what his attorneys want to say, they can't explain away. We understand time. Some aren't good with time. Some are late to everything, but we still understand time. So we know that when they tell you this is when this video was taken, this is the time of death, that's clearly his voice. Ryan, thank you for the super sticker. Said, anyone think Buster or one of AM's brothers will try to pay off a jury to lie and say they didn't want to vote guilty? I do. I do think we're going to get a rogue juror that's going to come out and is going to say, I was one that was voting not guilty. I felt duress. They had their minds made up, and it's going to be a problem. I really do. I don't think we're done with this. I think more's going to go on.
Alec finally admitting it was him for the first time a year and a half after the murders.
When he said it was him, were you surprised?
I was very surprised.
Why?
That was his only savior right there.
For some people, it's so hard to understand how a husband, especially a father, would kill their own son. What made you so sure that he had?
His responses, how quick he was with the defense, and his lies, steady lies.
Did you feel like he was a liar?
A good liar, but not good enough.
Moyer also not convinced by moments like this. Alec appearing emotional on the stand.
What did you think when Alec Murdaugh took the stand?
I didn't think much of him.
Really?
Really. I didn't see any true remorse or any compassion or anything.
Even though he cried a lot on the stand.
He never cried.
He never cried. What do you mean by that?
All he did was blow snot.
Did you not see tears?
No tears.
How did you know he wasn't crying?
Because I saw his eyes. I was this close to him.
Moyer says he also didn't buy the defense's argument that Alec didn't have enough time to commit the crime and create an alibi.
The defense said there's no way he could have done all these things, clean everything up, get it all ready, and then go to his mom's and come back in that short amount of time.
I think there's just enough time.
All those factors leading the jury to hand over that guilty verdict.
If you really look at everything, it's all plain and clear.
And the judge delaying sentencing until this morning so that victims could make statements in court. And this morning, we will see Alec Murdaugh arriving to the courtroom in an orange jumpsuit. Guys.
I always thought it was circumstantial evidence. I mean, from the very beginning, when the prosecutor put all his witnesses on, it was substantial evidence, a lot of reasonable doubt.
I mean, I don't really want to get into labels. Like I said, I'm not an attorney. I'm not a Google attorney. I don't play that game. But I consider myself, if I was on that jury, I would consider that video to be direct evidence because it places his ass right there minutes before a double homicide.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I totally agree. I agree. And with Paul's phone that stopped working and Maggie had nothing on her phone, it puts the exact time of their death and not a thermometer in the armpits.
Jules, are you unmuted?
Yeah, I'm listening.
Oh, good. Good deal. So I don't know what the timeline is for the appeals. I've heard that the financial crimes. Now, the judge is supposed to retire in July, but then we hear that he's going to be presiding over the financials. So what is it, next week? I mean, they're going to get that done between now and July? When are the financial crime cases?
I haven't heard anything yet about them.
I don't know. But he's facing 700 years just in financial.
Yeah.
So would it be safe to say that he's kind of like, look, give me a break on this murder stuff and just hook me up with the financials and I'll go to a federal prison that looks like a country club and leave these Pop-Tarts and remote controls that don't work behind me.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's exactly what's he's going to
Yeah.
try to do.
He doesn't want to be seen as the Murdaugh, the Murdaugh that killed. Exactly. The murderer.
Well, here's the whole thing. Geez, this is America for, FFS. Come on. Even if they had acquitted the fool and he walked out in jeans and a t-shirt and went to the local bar, they'd still look at him as a murderer. O.J. Simpson walked out happier than a pig in shit because he was acquitted of the murders of Nicole Brown Simpson and Ron Goldman. He still is looked at as a murderer.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's
He's
what
still gonna he's still gonna be branded as a murderer, even if he was found not guilty, because people will still think in their mind, well, did he do it or didn't he do it? Did he,
And I think he's got a plan up his sleeve, and I think it's to get into federal prison and get out of the state pen.
Yeah.
At this point, the reputation is done. It is done. It is over.
Yeah.
The suspicion was already in the air before they even charged him. He was well aware. I mean, he's been stripped of everything. That reputation is done and over. The only gambling chip he has right now is, 700 years for financials, put me in federal prison.
Yeah.
Keep me a little more comfy. Let's see what Angel P has to say. I don't know if Rowena is connected. She was having some problems. What you got, Angel P?
Good morning, everybody. How you doing, Brooks and Jules and Jeannie?
Pretty good, hon.
Morning.
Well, good. I'm just tickled to death with the trial outcome. I think that the evidence they presented with the digital evidence and the timeline, I think that was brilliant. And the lady that was the caretaker for his mother, what was her name? Shelley. She was a very good witness. She didn't want to be there, but she was telling the truth. There were just too many little sneaky, dirty things, in my opinion. I'm like I said, I'm very happy. I think the jury was correct in their verdict. But I will say this: there's a lot of history with this family, and a lot of things that, like, I didn't even know until I started listening. I don't have Netflix, so I haven't watched that, and I don't have HBO. We're simple people. We just watch regular TV if we watch it. But we the podcast that I listened to was from a local reporter down there named Mandy, and she'd been on that case for 3 years. And they've actually got a channel on YouTube, and I cannot believe some of the stuff that I have found out. Like when the boat wreck happened. You know how Paul called his grandfather, and then Alec and John Marvin, I think, maybe Randy, I'm not sure. There were two of them that showed up at the boat crash, even though they wouldn't let Mallory's family down there. And then with Stephen's,
Mandy Matinee or Matinee or something like that.
Yeah,
I followed her on.
Yeah, we don't really
Yeah.
promote other channels around here,
Right.
but it goes without saying that this family and what they have had going on for a century, a better part of a century, is horrible. It's horrible.
There was drug smuggling going on in all of the islands and rural areas that Murdaugh co-owned with that man that was known to be a drug smuggler. I can't remember his name. His name was brought up in the trial. But, he co-owned a lot of property that was islands that had great access by boat and then onto the highway. That was very interesting. And there's so much dirt and turns and twists in this case. It's every time you think that you've heard something, there's something else dirty that comes out.
Yeah, that's why I think we're not anywhere near the end of it. I think more stuff's going to come out because we know about Gloria. We know about Stephen. We know about the boat wreck. We know that he has stolen from client after client after client after client. We know about the murders of Maggie and Paul. Imagine what else is going on. That can't be it.
And I'm sorry, here I am a mod and bringing up another channel. I wasn't trying to do that. I'm sorry. I'm just so excited about all this information I studied last night. And the other thing, what was the other thing? The very last attorney for the prosecution. What was his name? Meadows?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
The one that was kind of real personable after Creighton was up there. To me, that man put it all together in a way that was very relatable. He kind of talked to the jurors in just regular talk, and I think he wrapped it all up real nicely and put a big bow on it for them. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, I think he sealed it up nicely for him. I would have let Mark Tinsley do all the closing arguments. Hell, he knows the case better than anybody.
Yes.
I did ask, and it was probably a very rude thing to ask. But I was just wondering I mean, I don't know the guy, but do you think Mark Tinsley, this is for everybody on panel in chat, do you think that he would have pursued Alex so aggressively, said, no, we're not just going to take an insurance settlement. I'm going after your financials personally. Do you think he would have done all that knowing that Alex would get so desperate to avoid all that he would kill his wife and son? Do you think that he would have do you think he still would have gone after him like that?
Oh, yes, I believe he would have.
Even if he knew that it would push him to commit a double homicide?
I don't think he knew that would push him to do a double homicide. You know what I mean? But I think he would still pursue him.
I guess I phrased my question wrong, but it's a good question. I think. I mean, hindsight's 20/20. Would you have taken the same path if you knew what would happen at the end of it? I don't know.
I would have. I think if I were Mark Tinsley.
Jules don't give a shit. Jules is like, hell yeah, I'd keep going. Jules like,
I'm
yeah.
with you, Jules.
And no, there's no way that Mark Tinsley would know that. Like I said, I obviously asked it the wrong way. If he had known that it would lead to this, do you think that he would have pursued him so aggressively?
Well, if he had known that that Alec was on the verge of needing to kill his Paul and Maggie, then no, I don't think he would have.
And nobody would know that. We don't know what's going to happen in an hour. We don't know what's going to happen next week. It's just a hindsight question. I'll never ask one again. So speaking of, I just don't phrase things right. Damn, I need to take better notes for myself. So speaking of Mark Tinsley, before we go, I loved his comments about the trial. They are actually considering what all is going on. Little tough not to die laughing at what he said. So let's look at that. Then I'm going to close it down.
I probably share the sentiment of Judge Newman in terms of I think it was an appropriate death penalty case. I think that even life without parole is probably too good for what he did. And, obviously relieved with the verdict. But I think that living in prison, gambling, meat sticks on football games is too good for him.
What are your thoughts on him still standing up?
That is hilarious. It's a death penalty case. Him gambling meat sticks is too good for him. Cracked me up.
Today and declaring his innocence.
That's a sociopath. Go watch what Ted Bundy did when they sentenced him. He said it was absurd that you're sentencing me. I'm innocent. There's a lot of similarities.
Now, as an attorney, what are your thoughts on the defense standing up talking about appealing this case?
They got to talk about something. I bet those lawyers don't handle it.
And what's next for the boat crash victims that you represent?
We're going to go to trial August the 14th.
And for you, do you think this sentencing helps them in any way have a little bit of justice? Obviously, so heartbreaking.
I don't know about helps them have justice, but they find comfort in the fact that that good has come out of Mallory's death and the investigation and the victimization of people and the things that have come out. They find some comfort in that. That's why they were here this morning, to show their respect for Paul and Maggie and stand up for what's right. At the hearing,
Tamara said, very personal for Tinsley. I think he knew so much about Alex's doings. I think so too. I think it's very, very personal for him. He wasn't just there for the day that he had to testify. He was in court a lot. And just as a human being, not an attorney, although it was funny when he threw shade at his attorneys and they asked about the appeal and he said, gotta have something to talk about now, don't you? He said, those guys can handle it. Talking about the attorneys. I thought that was hilarious. But of course it's going to hit him personally because he's become very close with Mallory's family. And also he knows that Alex got pushed over the edge. Of course it's crossed his mind. It could be his lawsuit.
Yeah. I believe the reason why. Sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
I believe the reason why he didn't excuse me, he didn't get the death penalty, or they didn't give him the death penalty is because they want justice for all the people that he scammed. I believe that's why he was spared the death penalty.
Well, I mean, the death penalty in this country can take anywhere from 15, 20, 30 years. There's plenty of time to get him for his financial.
Oh, that's
it's
true.
My opinion that they didn't go for the death penalty because you're rolling the dice. the family was very well revered. It could be an emotional thing, or it could be because they didn't know about the video at the time. But I don't know.
I agree with you, Brooks. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, his credibility went way out the window. When he went on the stand, he talked and they asked him point blank if he was there at the kennels. And he said yes.
And before he said no, he would have never admitted to being at those kennels if it wasn't for the video.
Exactly.
So he got Paul, and Paul got him.
Yep. Like
Paul,
they,
yep.
Didn't they not call him a detective? Paul was the detective.
Little detective.
Little detective. Yep. He's the one that found the pills. Or no, it was Maggie that found the pills in Alex's computer bag. She found the pills.
Well, in the long run, Pawpaw got his dad nailed against the wall, because you can talk all day and all night about motives and the damn pills that I didn't think they were ever going to quit bringing that up. And they're only doing that because odds are you're going to have one person that's in recovery on your jury, or one that knows one that's dealing with a kid that's in recovery that feels guilty about putting this man in jail for the rest of his life. They have an addiction sympathy.
Yeah.
And they were really trying too much with that. Indie Girl, this is it. Paul knew something was up. He was a little bit more of a little detective than he was given credit for.
Yeah, I believe that. He sealed the deal is what he did. Paul did.
Mm-hmm.
Gloria also found pills.
Yeah. Was it any damn secret that Alex was on pills? It seems like what do you do? Keep a candy dish of pills out? Damn, everybody knew about pills.
Yeah.
She found them taped underneath the mattress.
Wow.
Everybody knew.
Yeah.
Good.
Crazy.
All right, ladies. Well, thank you for coming up on panel. I've enjoyed talking to you this morning.
Thank you for having.
Go ahead, Jules.
Thank you for having me. I love you, and I'm gonna hop down, and I'll talk to you in Discord.
Love you, sweets. Thank you, Jeannie. Loved hearing your opinion and your take on this case. We're not done with it yet. There's more to go through. So thanks for coming up and talking with me.
Okay, thank you.
We had a lot of new people in chat today. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Make sure that you set your notifications to where you get reminded when we go live. It's not always at 9 a.m. Central Time. Sometimes I've got some other tricks up my sleeve. Sometimes you never know. I get all crazy and go live at 3 in the afternoon. You just never know. So yeah, this trial is over, but I think there's going to be a lot more about this family that comes out. I think there's going to be a lot more that comes out about the case with Gloria, with Stephen, the boat, the financials. Big evil gets big attention. That is for sure. You guys have a good rest of your day. If I don't see you in Discord, if I don't see you over in one of the Facebook groups, then I for sure will be seeing you back here at 9 a.m. tomorrow morning. You have a great Monday. I hate Mondays, but love spending Monday mornings with you.